Okay, hello everybody. Now, like I said, I was gonna do another video to kind of help you learn how to draw this. I tried to do this with the touch screen, but that didn't really go too well writing on that. So we'll give this a try. Now, I just sketched out a unit circle here. And we know this is 0 degrees. What you have to memorize, just the special triangle angles, like 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. Now, another thing you kind of got to memorize, every denominator is 2. Hopefully that's not too hard to remember. You can just fill all that in ahead of time. Now, I wrote these parentheses too far over. We'll move it closer so you can see it more easily. Now, this trick kind of depends on getting the coordinates of this right. We're on a unit circle. The radius of a unit circle is 1. Now just be careful. Make sure your x comes before your y. This is 1 over and 0 up. If you ever need to write this out, you gotta do that one right. You know, I know you guys know, it just might be an accident. Now watch what you can do. Start from 0 and just go 1, 2, 3. Technically, they'll have square roots on the top. But the square root of 1 is 1, so I know I don't need to write it. Now, just go down the other way. Again, square root of 1 is 1, I don't need it. So this trick right there, just getting the 1, 0 right and then counting up 0, 1, 2, 3. That cuts down on the memorization a lot. From there, you know, you take a look at your 90, over, none, up, 1. Now, like I said, if you just memorize these special angles here, you can kind of figure out the rest as you go through. If you take a look, this gap here, 60 to 90, well, that's 30-degree gap right there. It's a difference of 30 degrees. So when you start to do the other quadrants, 30 degrees more. So 90 plus 30, that's a 120. These are each 15 more. So you get 135, then 150, and then 30-degree gap gets you to your 180. Now, like I said, all you really got to be able to do is draw this. This is where all the memorization happens. And with that trick, hopefully not too much memorization. For the other one, just go with the reflections across the axes. If you take a look, the 60 would reflect onto the 120. Now the only difference is we're to the left of the origin. So all our x's are negative. But we're still up, so our y's stay positive. So 60 would reflect over there. So I just copy down the 1/2, radical 3 over 2. These would reflect onto the 135. And just now the x's are negative. And then the 30 would reflect over that y-axis right onto the 150. And then 180, left 1. So -1, 0. And again, I'm sorry, doing this with the phone might be a little unsteady, but it was working out a lot better than writing on the tablet. So another 30 degrees, 210. Then 15 degrees, 225. Then 15 more, 240. 30 degrees, oh good, we got back to 270, that means we're probably on the right track. Well, let's just go through and do the angles now. So 30 more degrees, 300, then 315, then 330. Remember, it goes 30 gap, 15, 15. Oh good. 30 more, we get back to 360 to 0. So we've done that right. Now to fill in over here, if you take a look at the 150, reflect that down over the x-axis, now you're just left and down, so they're both negative. So that goes down there. Don't swap any x's or y's or anything. Don't swap any x's or y's or anything. Everything's negative. And I wrote my parentheses too small. Everything's negative. And then over none, down 1. Now in this quadrant, some people like to reflect from the third. Some people don't. They like to go from the first. If you take a look, 30 degrees would reflect down to 330. Now we're right, so x is positive. But now we're under the axis, so y is negative. Again, x is positive, y is negative, and the 45 would reflect down to right there. So then the 60, the numbers from the 60 reflect down to there, to the 300. So that's how you draw this. The only thing you really got to memorize, don't get that one wrong. It's over 1, up none, and then just count 0, 1, 2, 3 on top. They all have square roots, but the square root 1 is 1, so you don't even have to write that. And then every denominator is 2. Then, from geometry, you had the 30 degrees was in the special triangle, the 45, and the 60. And then just think, okay, 30, 15, 15, 30. And then use that to go all the way around. Then reflect the other values for the coordinates. Now, like I said, this might seem a little much and kind of a little pointless. But if we take a look at what the point of this all is, if you're on the unit circle, your radius is 1. And this is why we reviewed SOHCAHTOA. So, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So sine, if you take a look here, sine, if you're on the unit circle, the opposite side is how high you are, the opposite from this angle, theta. That's just how high you are is your y-coordinate. So if you're on the unit circle, sine of an angle is your y-coordinate. Likewise, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent x over 1. X divided by 1 is just x. Here's how this helps. You're expected to memorize the exact value of all of these angles, the sine, the cosine, and we'll get to the tangent later. There's 2 ways to do this. I can make flashcards for every single number on here, an angle, and you can memorize them. Or you can draw this out once. When I was in college, the professors used to say in all the math and science classes, look, if you don't have these all memorized, like, hey, if you can't just say cosine of 45 degrees is radical 2 over 2, then draw this out. And you can't use your calculator because your calculator gives you decimals, and all decimals are rounded. These are the exact values. So, like I said, here's how this helps. I'm just going to take a random angle. Let's say the sine of 135. You draw this out. You go to 135. And like we said down at the bottom, sine is y. So, radical 2 over 2. That's the exact value of the sine of 135. I don't know. Maybe you want the cosine of 180 degrees. Like we said down here, cosine is x. So, cosine of 180. Hey, look, there's 180. Negative 1 is the x-coordinate. I don't know. Let's say I want the sine of 300. Sine what do we say? Sine is y. So 300, right there. Sine is y, so negative radical 3 over 2. We'll do one more. Let's say I ask you for the cosine of 120. Cosine of 120. Cosine is x. So there's 120. The x coordinate, the first one, negative 1/2. That's what the point of this is. If you can just learn the pattern here, every denominator is 2. Write your 1, 0, then go 0, 1, 2, 3. Technically, they all have square roots, but square root of 1 is 1, so you don't need it. And then the other side goes down the other way. If you can use this and then use your reflections to generate the rest, instead of having to memorize, like, hey, what's the cosine of 315? Instead of having to memorize that, you just draw this once at the beginning of the test, and then you got it right there. Now that's what the point of this is. And there's also another little trick, if you don't want to have to think opposite and hype and all that. The way to remember, a nice little trick to remember, X comes before Y in the alphabet. C comes before S. So cosine is your X coordinate, sine is your Y coordinate. This only works if you're on the unit circle. After we figure out all this stuff, I'll show you what to do if the regents, even though you don't have to take it, were to try to sneak one that wasn't on the unit circle. But now, I'm not going to sit here and make you draw this thing out repeatedly over and over again. I'll provide you one with filled in, and I'll just ask you for some sines and cosines. Just remember the trick. X comes before Y in the alphabet, so does C come before S. So X is cosine, Y is sine. Okay?